And I think where there was a lot of attacks on her after her debating, after her being more public about her debate, it did seem like there was a concerted effort against her to silence her. They came after her. The mob came after her. They came after her. The mob came after her. They came after her. The mob came after her. Big news that just happened. Briahna Joy Gray from Rising, The Hills Rising. As many of you know, I was on Rising as one of their main hosts for a while. Briahna Joy Gray has been hosting the show with Robbie Suave for the last while. She has been fired from The Hill. She has announced it publicly. I've been in contact with her as well as with Robbie, as well as with others at The Hill. And it has been confirmed that she has been fired. She tweeted this out. She says, "It finally happened. The Hill has fired me. There should be no doubt that Rising has a clear pattern of suppressing speech, particularly when it's critical of the state of Israel. This is why they fired Katie Halper, and it was only a matter of time before they fired me. You can continue to follow me at Patreon, Bad Faith Podcast. She does have her own podcast that she's been doing and has continued to do for quite a while, so you could follow her there." And then she attached the letter that she received, the email that she received, June 6th, Briahna Joy Gray, they spelled her name wrong. Notice of contract termination. Dear Briahna Joy, this is 30 days written notice that your consulting services agreement is being terminated pursuant to the provisions of Section 5.3 for convenience. Thank you for your contributions, and we wish you the best in your future endeavors. Sincerely yours, Next Star Media. Yeah, okay.
Are you familiar with Genesis 12:3?
Probably not as well as you are, Congressman.
Well, it's pretty clear. It was the covenant that God made with Abraham. And that covenant was real clear. If you bless Israel, I will bless you. If you curse Israel, I will curse you. And then in the New Testament, it was confirmed that all nations would be blessed through you. So you do not know about that.
I have heard that. Now that you've explained it, yes, I have heard that before.
It's now familiar. Do you consider that a serious issue? I mean, do you want Columbia University to be cursed by God?
I mean, do you want Columbia University to be cursed by God?
I mean, do you want Columbia University to be cursed by God?
Here's the deal. We fail the mission, you die.
If we find out any information you give us is false, you die.
If we find out you have personalized license plates, you die.
What? No.
If you mismatch blacks, you die.
No.
If you cough without covering your mouth.
Harley, those last three aren't things.
Look, Briahna Joy Gray recently has been taking a lot of crap for her stance on Israel. She is very much against what Israel's doing. She's anti-Zionist. She's anti the ethno-state of Israel. She's said everything that I have said here on this show, as many others have said on their own shows. But Briahna was working for a sort of like a mainstream news outlet. They kind of paint themselves as, they sort of pride themselves on kind of straddling the middle on that a little bit. They're a mainstream news organization, but they try to, with Rising, for example, and trying to have more anti-establishment voices on, they've tried to be less establishment-y and more about, kind of being the voice of the people or allowing populist movements a voice and whatnot. So they've kind of straddled the line a little bit, but then they have their lines that you're not allowed to cross. And one of them being Israel. You're allowed to criticize Israel to a degree, but they do have a line.
Anti-Semitism is a hate against their religion. By the time you get to the 18th and 20th centuries, when so many Jews have assimilated, they are in culture, they are in arts, they're in science, it's no longer against them for their religion, it's against them for their race. This anti-Semitism is the oldest hate in the world, and the hate that mutates.
You said it's a hate that mutates.
Correct.
So your belief then is that the definition of anti-Semitism can necessarily change. Is that correct?
It's not just my belief. It is the commonly accepted understanding in both the Jewish and academic worlds.
Does it, without getting too semantic, or at the risk of getting too semantic, does it matter that the Jews are not Semites, or does this phrase anti-Semitism just means hatred for the Jewish people? They're Ashkenazi, they're Eastern European Jews.
Briahna Joy Gray, recently, it has been really refreshing to see that even after the whole Katie Halper incident, where she wasn't, where they basically let her go, it was nice to see that Briahna was allowed to actually speak up about Israel. She was allowed to freely be very critical. She got into really heated debates with Robbie. And she had just been really speaking her mind and doing really great work. Well, they had enough.
Bill Maher's caught some flack for a new segment in which he makes the case for Israeli superiority. Let's take a listen.
Because values and customs make a difference, okay? And the people of Gaza, by the way, if the Israelis did get rid of Hamas, they'd be doing a giant favor to the people of Gaza who hate Hamas too. But let's just go through the lists. Because the Israelis look like us.
Because they're white like them? Are they allowed to...
Who's white?
Well, I mean, a lot of Americans consider Israel is the white...
But you know for a fact
I know.
Most Israelis are Sephardic and are brown.
It's the perception.
So it's bullshit,
It's the
is what I'm saying.
perception.
Exactly.
It's a perception, So this is how Israel promotes itself. We are we are a democratic country. I have never seen a secular or democratic country that would actually give contraception shots to its own citizens, to their Ethiopian Jews, and make them not to reproduce. And until 2013, they have confessed doing that. They have been doing this for 10 years. That is not a democratic country.
Well, joining us for our weekly segment, Bottom Line, is Allgemeiner CEO David Efune. So, David, let's jump right in. Genetically speaking, are Jews white?
Well, Natasha, it's important to understand, firstly, the intense sensitivity that this question has for the Jewish community. And actually, it's coming up at a personally very relevant time for me. Today is the anniversary of the passing of my great-grandfather, David Weinstock, who was arrested by the Nazis in Vienna in September 1939. And he was taken to the anthropological department at the Vienna Museum of Natural History, and he was subjected to, together with 440 other Jews, to degrading tests and measurements because he was considered by the Nazis to be of an inferior race. So it really is the height of irony and insult that when Jews express concern about anti-Semitism being ignored and a blindness to anti-Semitism, they're then lumped into the white category.
I think, again, in America, most Jews are Ashkenazic Jews who are white. I think, again, in America, most Jews are Ashkenazic Jews who are white. I think, again, in America, most Jews are Ashkenazic Jews who are white. Sometimes part of the problem between the two communities is that some people will take advantage of that, will use their whiteness as a way of promoting themselves, as a way of integrating themselves into whatever community they want to be in by removing themselves and denigrating themselves from some other community. Right. I find that problematic.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israelite, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time,
but
already he said,
no, we don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews?
Because values and customs make a difference, okay? And the people of Gaza, by the way, if the Israelis did get rid of Hamas, they'd be doing a giant favor to the people of Gaza who hate Hamas too. But let's just go through the lists. Because the Israelis look like us in most ways, values-wise. Maybe we're not doing it the right way. I don't know. Religious tolerance. That doesn't exist in Gaza. You're either Muslim or an infidel, and you better be a Muslim. Female freedom. Free and fair elections. Free speech. Gay rights. Can I just finish my list? Pedophilia, I'll put that under don't ask. Child brides and so forth. Equality of the sexes, I'll categorize that under don't make me laugh. The fact that, you know, these people think that this is where they should be aligned with.
A CBS News investigation has uncovered a loophole that allows accused and convicted American pedophiles to escape justice by moving to Israel. So Ian Lee has been following this for more than a year, and he traveled to Israel for this investigation. He worked with a group that tracks people accused of sex crimes, which estimates dozens of Americans have used this loophole.
So, you know, he's 6'2".
We are on a stakeout looking for this man, Jimmy Julius Caro, 48 years old and wanted on charges of sexually assaulting a 9-year-old girl in Oregon back in 2000 and a 5-year-old girl in Israel in 2001. He's considered dangerous. But these photos are a few years old, so we don't know if he'll look the same. He remains elusive. Previous attempts to capture him have failed.
Obviously, the fear that he would somehow figure out that anyone's looking for him and bolt. He just called his number.
Shauna Aronson got a tip that Caro's expected at this clinic near Tel Aviv.
Who's going to call the
She's with JCW, Jewish Community Watch, an organization that hunts down accused pedophiles who flee to Israel from the U.S., exploiting a process called Law of Return, whereby any Jewish person can move to Israel and automatically gain citizenship. The ease with which pedophiles seem able to use this law as an escape route haunts victims like Mendy Hawk, who says he was abused from age 8 by a teacher at an Orthodox Jewish school in Los Angeles.
So your classroom is right here. How does it feel being back?
I was very anxious and, you know, stressed coming back here. A lot of memories coming through my mind.
Memories of his alleged abuser, Mordechai Yom Tov, who taught him Hebrew studies when he was just 8 years old.
So in the beginning, he would just rub me like outside of my pants, and then I would say about 3 to 4 months later, he started going like in.
Reaching down your pants?
Yeah, it's reaching down.
Why did you feel like you couldn't tell anyone?
I was scared, I was ashamed. I mean, I just didn't know what people would think of me with the whole situation.
Yom Tov pled guilty in 2002 to sexually abusing and committing lewd acts against 3 other boys. He served jail time, but when he was released, he violated his probation and, according to JCW, fled to Israel with help from individuals within the Orthodox Jewish community. JCW tracked Yom Tov down and confronted him with a hidden camera in Jerusalem, where he admitted to illegally fleeing the United States with help and using a fake passport to enter Israel.
I was supposed to stay for 5 years in the same city. I was supposed to, let's see, trying on the side of sort of thing. I was supposed to go every 2 weeks to the police station. On parole. I left within a week later.
He had this message for his victims.
I'm very, 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 very sorry.
The other person in this video is Meir Seawald, the founder of Jewish Community Watch. He tells CBS News Yom Tov's case isn't uncommon in the Orthodox community.
The same thing that's going on in the Catholic Church right now around the world, the exact same thing happens in our community. The rabbis say it's, you know what, he promised he's going to go for therapy, he's never going to do it again. Boom, he's in another community. A few years later, he's at the same thing, and we hear more allegations that the person continued to abuse children.
And often, those abusers end up in Israel.
He was sexually abused by a trusted teacher and then was shunned by his community as he tried to get justice.
And Janine, the teen you're about to meet is the first sex abuse victim from New Square to ever seek justice from the courts.
He told me that he has the ability to read the palm of my hands.
Yossi's life coach started to read other parts of his body. That ritualistic abuse, Yossi says, dragged on 3 times a week for 4 agonizing months, each time Taubenfeld ordering him to stay silent.
Digging deeper tonight, new concerns about an alleged epidemic of sex abuse being covered up in New York's ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Jewish community.
A New York rabbi arrested in Beverly Hills, accused of molesting children in Brooklyn.
Menachem Tewel, who also goes by the name Mendel Tevel, is a rabbi.
During the last year, he's worked here at this Jewish center, JEM, in Beverly Hills, doing outreach work with children and teenagers. And Tuesday, he was arrested here on a warrant from New York, accusing him of 2 counts of criminal sexual acts and 1 count of sexual abuse.
I was 7 times a victim of molestation, 7 separate molesters.
Disturbing allegations are surfacing in a very unexpected place.
For centuries, when a Jewish baby boy is born, the ancient ritual of circumcision is performed. But in some ultra-Orthodox communities, religious leaders known as moyals also engage in something controversial during the bris. In a practice known as Metzitze Bepeh, or just MBP, the moil actually uses his mouth to suck the blood from the infant's penis after he cuts off the foreskin. According to these documents we obtained from the State Health Department, Rabbi Yitzhak Fisher of Muncie has been tied to at least 3 herpes infections in babies, one of whom died back in 2004.
Now you can have tubes, so why not? The answer, as I thought about it, is that it's not as effective because the tube does not seal as well, it's not as pliable. It's not as quick and it's not as close. You have to have a quick suction action. There's the theory, some people feel that it is, some people feel that it's not, that the saliva of a human being has some antiseptic qualities. And it's actually brought in the halacha of the Talmud that the saliva of certain people were actually used as curatives. Saliva is not a bad thing. Saliva has elements of cleaning, of antiseptic elements within it. The suction process of the mouth is quicker, more pliable, and it doesn't, and it's more exact and works much better.
33-year-old Rabbi Yoel Malik, now accused of preying on 3 troubled teen boys from a Borough Park yeshiva for at-risk students. Unlicensed Satmar counselor Nekemia Weberman was sentenced to 103 years in prison for turning a schoolgirl into his sex toy for 3 years, starting when she was just 12.
Now, if someone complained that Jews didn't share our values and customs, that they didn't look like us, that, say, calling themselves chosen people was evidence of religious intolerance, if someone accused Jews broadly of pedophilia or sexual deviance, citing Weinstein, Epstein, and, let's say, Seinfeld, and argued that as a result they didn't want to live in a country with Jews, I doubt we would struggle to identify those remarks for what they are: bigotry, anti-Semitism. Now, Maher's commitment to Islamophobia is nothing new, nor is it subtle. He has argued that Syrian refugees should be rejected because, quote, their cultures are not like ours, an argument eerily reminiscent of a justification used to deny Jews asylum as they faced persecution by Nazi Germany. He's argued that Islam, the religion that shares more with Judaism than any other religion, is, quote, the motherlode of bad ideas. He's described Muslims collectively as threatening and joked that Muslims, who comprise 25% of all human beings on earth, that they belong to a, quote, culture in its medieval era. He accused Muslims of, quote, bringing that desert stuff to our world and referred to Muslims as uncivilized. When challenged as to whether Islam is a religion of peace, Maher once quipped, yeah, they blow you up. There's a piece of you over there. There's a piece of you over there. There's a piece of you over there.
Are you at all concerned about the innocent civilians that have been collectively punished and murdered, largely children and women? And are you at all concerned about the fact that the International Criminal Court just today issued a subpoena for Bibi Netanyahu?
Well, that's ridiculous, but it's a war.
Why?
It's a war. Because it's a war, and they were attacked, and they're defending themselves. Now, this is a war. Do you think Hamas needs to be destroyed? This is the question.
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
So how can we do that with a ceasefire?
All right. So Hamas needs to be destroyed because they are a terrorist organization who say openly that they want to commit genocide on the Jewish people, on the state of Israel. That's what from the river to the sea means.
And all the acts of terrorism perpetrated by pro-Palestinians against Israelis during the two intifadas, what do you think of those?
I'm not here to debate the first and the second intifada with you. I've told you the definition of the word. You can
but that
leave it
is
at
why
that
when
and allow me to address the other things that you brought on.
You're being disingenuous. When pro-Palestinian groups outside of New York University chant about intifada, they know what they're doing, and Jewish people know what they're doing. They are invoking the first and second intifada,
I don't know what
which
you say they're doing,
which
because
involved
every
a lot of violence and a lot of terrorism.
Has been chanting intifada for decades. So this, and let's go back. Let's go to the second phrase you say, from the river to the sea.
Yeah.
Now they want to make a problem with that. Any chant that we say, there's this accusation of anti-Semitism.
But what you don't talk about is you say from the river to the sea is an unacceptable chant. Did you mention to the audience in these last 20 minutes that Benjamin Netanyahu actually said it?
For 30 years, I am very consistent, and I'm saying something very simple. This conflict is not on the lack of a state of Palestinian, but the existence of a state, the Jewish state. Every area that we evacuate, we receive terrible terror against that. It happened in South Lebanon, in Gaza, and also Judea and Samaria, which we did it. And therefore, I clarify that in any other arrangement, in the future, the state of Israel have to control on the entire area from the river to the sea.
Did the president address Netanyahu's use of the phrase from the river to the sea in their conversation today? I know the White House has previously said that phrase is divisive. So
I'm not aware that that specific phrase was discussed.
Do you condemn him using that phrase?
Look, there's a connotation with that phrase. We've talked about this before, but when you use the phrase "river to the sea," it speaks basically to the mantra of Hamas and in their manifesto, where they basically describe the geographic bounds of what they believe to be Palestine. And if you look at it on the map, if you go look at the four corners that they describe it, it's basically the state of Israel. They just don't believe it should exist. So again, it's not a phrase that that we recommend using, given because of that context.
But this wasn't Hamas. This was Netanyahu.
I understand. I don't have anything more on that, and I certainly don't have anything more on the conversation to read out with respect to that.
Briahna Joy Gray mentioned she debated that. She also talked about she was following along. There's the story of the rape, the mass rapes. Briahna had been following that story. The gray zone is done, which we're going to get to the gray zone here in a second because they're also under fire. But the gray zone had been, Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate had been doing some really great reporting, really talking about the reality of what really happened, where there was some evidence, where there wasn't evidence. There was a lot of stories circulating around. New York Times circulated a story about mass rapes without having a single shred of evidence to back it up, which is not journalism. And they were pointing it out. The gray zone was pointing it out, and they were able to and then, of course, the New York Times backtracks later on, and there's this, well, okay, we didn't really actually have any evidence, but by then the damage is done, even if they come back with the retraction a month later or 2 months later.
More than 60 journalism professors around the United States have written to the New York Times calling on the paper to commission an independent review of its report that members of Hamas committed widespread sexual violence on October 7th. Numerous media outlets have raised questions about the paper's reporting, which was written in part by a freelance Israeli journalist, or reported by her, who had liked multiple posts on social media advocating for violence against Palestinians. Last week, Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez and I spoke to one of the letter's signatories, Rutgers University journalism and media studies professor Deepa Kumar, author of Islamophobia and the Politics of Empire, 20 years after 9/11. I began by asking her what prompted the letter.
Basically, after this particular article screams without words how Hamas weaponized sexual violence on October 7th came out, there have been numerous reports that have debunked its primary claims. And several journalism professors started to talk about what it means for the New York Times to run a piece like this, even though its key claims have been debunked. And so so a group of journalism professors got together and crafted this letter to the New York Times to, as you say, set up an investigative, an independent investigation of how the story was reported, written, and published. And at the center of the controversy really is how the two freelancers who were recruited, particularly Anat Schwartz, who's not a journalist at all. She's an Israeli filmmaker and an intelligence officer for a former Israeli officer for the Air Force. And she has no experience doing journalism. She's recruited to do this story. And what The Intercept, for instance, and Jeremy Scahill, you've had him on the show to talk about the story, what they have shown is how she went around trying to find evidence for the claim that there was systematic violence against women on October 7th and couldn't find any.
Right now, there is no evidence of any rape taking place. That doesn't mean I'm going to just deny it. But the claims put forward in this New York Times article, the claims put forward in The Guardian, the claims put forward by NBC, those are what we've been debunking. They don't add up. And so when you talk about this witness, Sapir, who is the Israeli police's key witness, and the Israeli police have acknowledged in an interview with Haaretz, that witness, that there is no physical or forensic evidence or video evidence or any evidence to back up any of her claims. When this witness claims to have been shot in the back, then witnessed gang rape, and then Hamas militants whipping out 3 decapitated heads of women, and this person can't be fully identified, you have to start questioning some of these claims. I mean, it sounds like something out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We've seen so many lies, the lies about 40 beheaded babies.
And you know what is similar? Is when you spread the lies of 40 decapitated babies, although it was refuted. So what happens when people hear that, killing babies is horrible. But when you say decapitated 40 babies, you are planting a certain image
Well, who has
with
said
a certain
that?
trigger in people's mind.
Who has said that? Who has said 40?
Who has said that?
Who has said that?
40 decapitated.
Who has said that?
You have repeated.
No, I haven't.
What?
I've never said that.
You haven't said on your show 40 decapitated babies?
Never. We can't ignore this extraordinarily sad, horrible story that's come out of Israel. What do you make of this?
Well, it's barbaric. I mean, it's one of the... I can't think of anything that has upset me more other than 9/11. And I don't really want to talk about it too much because I get upset. So if you want me to be crying during your show, go ahead.
No, I tell you, I myself choked up earlier reading this new revelation about 40 babies being killed.
Oh, my God.
And some of them being beheaded.
And then, of course, the New York Times backtracks later on, and there's this, well, okay, we didn't really actually have any evidence, but by then the damage is done, even if they come back with the retraction a month later or 2 months later. Well, Briahna had been talking about that as well, saying that there is no evidence of this. We can only talk about things where there's evidence. She was holding firm to that. And I think where there was a lot of attacks on her after her debating, after her being more public about her debate, it did seem like there was a concerted effort against her to silence her. They came after her. The mob came after her.
I can't say that I'm representing any more of that. I don't know what's going on in their meeting of the cabinet. I don't know what is going on the negotiation team. It's not my job to perform. My job is to take care of my sister and to show the world what is really going on right now. What is really going on to my sister. What has really gone... What really happened on October 7th. I don't know if you know Zaka organization, but they have the worst pictures of what Hamas has done to the women during the October 7th attack.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately, we are very familiar with Zaka, but regrettably, the reporting has been roundly discredited by both Israeli and American media sources. So I really would like to bring this back to your sister specifically. And I want to ask you about what you make of new reports.
Because I saw the pictures with my own eyes. And when you will have a sister in a terror organization's hand, you will know the feeling of terrifying every minute of every day, can't sleep at night, can't even drink a sip of water because I know that my sister is drinking salt water from the sea, that she's not getting food and the terrorist is eating in front of her face.
Yeah, Yardin, I really hope your sister does get water and food, and I hope that, I'm sure you're aware of the ample reporting of Israel blocking aid, food and water to Gaza in a way that is hurting both the people of Gaza and the hostages, right?
Most of the trucks are getting inside Gaza. I don't know if you saw, but Hamas is blocking them.
There has been disruption to aid supplies coming into Gaza as well, with some Israeli protesters yesterday blockading trucks that were heading from Jordan through the West Bank trying to take aid supplies into Gaza. That's been an issue. They want to highlight the ongoing plight of the hostages who are still being held by Hamas in Gaza.
Then the leverage is obvious. We have provided Israel with tens of billions of dollars over many years. Just the other day, against my vote, another $3.3 billion went to military aid for Israel. Is part of the supplemental bill, which is still being discussed. Gets $14 billion more, including $10 billion more for unfettered military aid. So you want to talk about leverage? That's leverage. The idea that Israel is telling us what they're going to do at the same time as they're accepting our money is a bit absurd to me. When I look at the situation there right now, what is most important is that as we speak right now, hundreds of thousands of children are facing starvation, while at the same time, hundreds, if not thousands of trucks are lined up to get into Gaza to deliver the humanitarian aid, and Israel is refusing to allow that. That is obscene, that is unacceptable, and a matter of fact is in violation, as you know, of American law, because any country that bars American humanitarian aid should not be getting financial support from the United States. That's the law.
Most of the trucks are getting inside Gaza. I don't know if you saw, but Hamas is blocking them from them civilians. They're not giving their own civilians the humanitarian aid that everyone is so eager to give them. And I'm not against that. I'm a nurse in my profession. I really, truly believe that everyone should live in safety, in health. This is one of the biggest crises that we ever experienced here. But I'm really feeling that everyone is taking care of the Gaza civilians like they should. But what about the hostages? Why
let's talk about how to get the hostages home. I agree.
No, please let me finish. Why aren't the Red Cross is entering the hostages? Why aren't they giving them medications? My sister have a lot of chronic diseases. Why aren't she getting anything? And we know that they didn't got anything. Why aren't they getting what they deserve?
The Times just reported this morning that Biden said, quote, "There's every reason for people to draw the conclusion that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is prolonging the war for his own political self-preservation." This is after Biden's speech at the end of last week was met with statements from Israeli government officials saying that there wasn't an agreement about this hostage deal on the part of Israel, and that there was a gap between what Biden represented and what they would agree to. And after months of Netanyahu and members of his administration saying that the goal was to eliminate Hamas and that he would not agree to a ceasefire and hostage exchange deal, into that happened. Now, this seems to be Joe Biden saying again that what is obstructing the ceasefire process that could allow your sister to come home and get the food and get the medicine and get the care that she needs and to live in safety is being obstructed by Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you feel like he's putting his own personal political goals ahead of prioritizing hostage release?
I really see that you want to talk political things, and this is not my profession. I'm saying right now that we have an Israeli deal on the table, and we're waiting for Hamas to say yes.
Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. I wish that it were, but unfortunately, that does not seem to be the case. Would you like to say anything else that we should know about your...
That even Biden said himself. This is what the Egyptian government said. This is what the Qatari said just today. And this is what my government said. Hamas also said that they're waiting, they need to read the agreement and to decide whatever they want. I don't know, because what I'm getting is from the media, and I'm sure that you're getting it from the media itself yourself, because you're not in the negotiation team. So I'm here to talk about my sister. Please help me spread her story. Help me make people understand what she's going through as a woman in 2024. We are not 200 years ago. This is not okay that we have terror organizations that controlling the free world and people in the West letting it happen and stay on the streets, killing the hostages now, or Israelis must die. What did I do wrong? What did my sister did wrong? Nothing. Nothing. We did nothing wrong.
Well,
this was happening inside our own country. Yeah. And if the world won't help us, we will see 9/11 the second time in the U.S. as well. But we can already see in the United States, in Michigan, rallies that's calling death to America, not condemning terror organizations in Israel or any other place. In fact, is reflecting to your country as well.
I'm just going to push back against the implication that in Michigan, which has the largest Muslim and Arab population in America, that there is any threat of terrorism from our own people. And I would like to clarify also that one of the rationale that was presented for 9/11 was discussed with America's support of Israel's continued occupation of Palestine. So that's neither here nor there. I really do hope that Netanyahu agrees and Israel agrees to the ceasefire deal that could bring all the hostages, including your sister, home. And I'm sure many people watching are praying for her safety.
Thank you. Me too. And I really hope that you specifically will believe women when they say that they got hurt.
All right. Thanks for joining. Stick around. More Rising coming up next.
Thank you.
What's your thoughts? Please be respectful with your comments. Also, please click the like, click the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11, verse 10. Explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14, verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.